Well, with the review of the North American Free Trade Deal fast approaching, there are increasing signs that U.S. objections to Canada's tech rules will play a pivotal role. In his remarks in December, top U.S. trade official Jameson Greer said the deal's review will depend on a list of issues, including the impact of Canada's online streaming and online news acts for U.S. companies. And there's more legislation on the way that could prove controversial with Washington as Ottawa takes another pass at the failed Online Harms Act. Last week, Culture Minister Mark Miller told The Logic his government is weighing President Donald Trump's reaction as it writes the new online safety laws, saying they're not oblivious to the fact that large American companies have access to the White House. So, what does one of the biggest American tech giants want from Canada's new rules? Rachel Curran is the head of public policy in Canada for Meta, the parent company, of course, of Facebook and Instagram. Rachel Curran, good to see you again. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
So the Liberals' Online Harm Act never became law, though it is coming back in some form. It didn't have age verification in its original form. It called for a duty to protect children.
Yes.
You want age verification, but you want it done in the App Store, not on your apps. Why?
Yeah, absolutely, David. So what underpins all of these youth safety initiatives, which we think are equally important, and we're glad the government is looking at options to better protect youth online, what really underpins all of that is proper age verification. So the real problem now, and we put a lot of time and effort into trying to determine the age of our users accurately. You know, we ask users what their age is. We know that teens sometimes lie to us about that. But we also have automated systems that try and determine what someone's age is accurately. If they're under 18, we'll proactively place them in a more restricted experience we have built called teen accounts.
Right.
But really the best way to verify age accurately is to do it at the App Store level. So Google and Apple, when you're setting up a kid's phone, age information is entered at that point. They know whether a phone user, a phone owner is over 18 or under 18. They can send a signal to app developers, including us, about whether someone is a minor or not. It's a simple age signal, no identifying information, privacy protective, and that then allows us and others to put teens in a safer experience.
But doesn't that just shift the regulatory burden and the liability away from the actual platforms to the distributor, you know, to the App Store? Like, why shouldn't it be your responsibility as a company?
Well, it is, and we do invest a lot of time and effort in trying to determine users' ages, as I've said. So we not only ask users what their age is and ask for their birth dates, but we have set up these automated systems that look at people's friend networks, that look at the content they're viewing. We even look at things like birthday posts in a privacy protective way to see if someone is lying to us about the age they are. And as I say, we will proactively put people in the teen accounts experience if we think they are under 18, and then require them to produce identification to show us they're over 18. So we do invest a lot of time and energy in trying to determine someone's age, determine a user's age, but we know that there are gaps in that. And it's impossible to enforce age restrictions or age-appropriate experiences properly without accurately determining age. And the best and most effective way to do that is at the App Store level. Here's the other thing, David. Teens are using an average of 40-plus apps per week.
Sure.
I don't even think I could name 40 apps, but to do this in one place makes it easier for app developers and easier for parents to control what their teens are seeing and doing.
But if something goes wrong on your platforms, because things happen despite best intentions, I mean, who would ultimately be responsible? Would it be Apple and Google who you're asking to do this, or would it still be Meta? Because it's your pool, so you should have the lifeguards, right?
Absolutely. There's no shifting of responsibility. Like, we have committed to building age-appropriate experiences for teens and putting teens in kind of safer and more restricted experiences on our platforms, and that responsibility continues. It's the same for other app developers as well. You know, they're building experiences, and all of the big companies are doing this, building experiences that are designed for teens. In our case, content, for instance, is guided by PG-13 movie standards, so teens shouldn't see or hear anything on our platforms that they wouldn't see or hear in a PG-13 movie. So all of that responsibility still rests on us, and we continue to, improve on that.
So why not just take on this step? This is what I'm wondering, because I mean, Meta has vast resources. I mean, it's one of the largest, wealthiest, most successful companies on earth. You could require identification to be uploaded directly to your platform. You could do that extra level of age verification information.
Yes.
Why put it on Apple or Google? Because you don't necessarily control their corporate conduct here.
Yeah, and look, sometimes we do, and we work with a company called Yoti in the UK that does age estimation using selfies, for instance, face selfies. So we do require uploading of documentation in cases where we're asking users to prove their age to us. But David, for every single app to do that, 40 plus apps to do that app by app, is not a privacy protective way of determining a user's age. You know, if teens are going to have to upload their documentation to 40 plus different apps, there's a risk of, you know, breach of privacy. There's a risk that some apps may be hacked and information, you know, leaked that way. So we think it's much safer and more privacy protective to do this at the App Store level.
But 40 apps doesn't mean 40 social media apps, right? It means a broad range of different things, right? I mean, the social media apps, I mean, this is why France and Australia, they've moved to ban it for under 16s because of some of the negative consequences of just the way it rewires brains.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're really talking about like Meta and the other big social media companies here that would be required to do this.
Yeah, but it's also important to make sure teens are having age-appropriate experiences on the range of apps they use. Not always social media, whether it's Roblox, whether it's Discord, whether it's various gaming apps. Like, you want to ensure teens are in age-appropriate and safe experiences on all of those apps.
Roblox has responded to a lot of concerns. I got 9 and 11-year-old boys. I've got a crash course on Roblox.
Yeah.
There was a lot of bad stuff happening in the chat channels of that app,
Yes.
and Roblox has responded to it and done a bunch of different things.
Yes.
They didn't put that on the App Store where you get it. They took ownership of it, right?
Yes, but then parents and teens are still having to manage this app by app. So you're doing it, and then teens, again, are on a range of dozens of different apps. Some of those companies are, you know, taking responsibility and ensuring teens are in a more age-appropriate experience or in a safer experience. Some are not. So you want to ensure that across the app ecosystem, that teens are protected and in age-appropriate experiences, or not able to access apps that they shouldn't be accessing. And so if you determine age at the App Store level, you can then apply that signal across the app ecosystem and ensure that apps like ours, are able to place young people in the right experience for their age.
I mean, people may look at this and say, you're trying to get off the hook for the responsibility here, right? I mean, I just wonder, you know, what your response is then, if you've had conversations with the Canadian government about this particular issue.
We have. So we're going to continue investing time and energy and resources in accurately determining our users' age. So we've spent a lot of resources doing that to date, including things like, you know, age estimation, automated systems that look at signals from users to try and accurately determine what their ages are and whether they're lying to us about being under 18. We're going to continue all of that work, David, but this is just the more effective, the more privacy protective, the much more common sense way, I think, of determining user ages and making sure across the range of experiences that teens are having, that they are properly protected.
But the straight line of accountability, right, is like, you know,
change.
Your platform, your accountability. So like, if someone can get around Apple's Age ID or Google's Age ID, and they encounter something on a Meta platform, I mean, I can see lawyers just saying, well, that's Apple's fault, that's Google's fault, it's not our fault for what's on our platform.
Yeah, no, that doesn't change the responsibility we have to ensure that youth are not seeing content that's inappropriate for their age, not contacting people or having people contact them in ways that are inappropriate. The other thing we've addressed through teen accounts is the time that youth are spending on platforms like Instagram. We are really restricting that and giving parents the tools to limit the time their teens spend on our platforms. So none of this would change our ultimate responsibility for those kinds of things.
Okay, one other quick topic I wanted to touch on is the Online News Act, which is something Meta opposed, and it's the reason why news links cannot be shared on Meta platforms. This is apparently being reconsidered by the Government of Canada. We're not sure what stage, but your company and the government has had conversations about this. Where are things? Do you see a timeline where news could be back on your platforms after a couple of years of absence?
Well, we've always said we'd love to bring news back on our platforms. Look, as a Canadian user, I used to read lots and lots of news articles and follow all of the mainstream publishers on Facebook and get a lot of my news content there. I know other Canadians are in similar positions. we would love to bring that content back. I think what the Online News Act did, it was not recognize what we felt was the value exchange as between our platforms and publishers.
And the uncapped liability issue, and that if people posted links, you had to pay whether you wanted it there or not. I get that.
Yeah, no, we're very different from Google, right? We allow publishers to voluntarily post content on our platforms, and then we provide them with much broader distribution and drive traffic to their websites that they can then monetize. I think the current government recognizes that reality and wants to work on a resolution that would allow us to bring news back to our platforms. So we're having those discussions with them. They're also obviously very keen on ensuring the news industry and publishers are properly supported and that Canadian news is properly supported. So we're trying to, find the right balance there.
But is there still a balance where Meta does not pay for news content on its platforms? Is that still the bottom line position of the company? And I'm not advocating that you should, because I have my own views on this Online News Act. But that was sort of the fracture point, the breaking point. Is that still the line in the sand for Meta as a parent company?
Well, it doesn't make business sense for us to pay directly for news content posted to our platforms. And that's why we removed news in response to the Online News Act. But David, before the Online News Act was brought into force, we had entered into a number of private deals with news publishers and used their content in different ways on our platforms. We have globally now entered into a number of AI training deals with news publishers that give us access to their content.
But that's the value for you now, as Meta becomes a big AI company.
Absolutely, but that's where it makes business sense for us to pay for news content. We have been blocked from having those conversations in Canada with Canadian publishers because of the Online News Act. So if we could reach some kind of resolution here, that would enable us to have those conversations with Canadian publishers and engage in conversations around the kind of support that makes business sense for us.
Okay, Rachel Curran, we've gone over time. I appreciate you being here. It's Rachel Curran, Head of Public Policy with Meta Canada. Thank you.
Thanks, David.